Hey, we're back for another episode of the Tech 1-2 podcast. I'm John Campus, founder and CEO of MPiz. If you're a small and medium-sized business, you need to tune into this episode. We're talking about AI, cybersecurity, and everything that happens in your business every day. So grateful for all the likes and subscribes. It's been a pleasure interviewing so many industry experts. But today, I'm going to bring you the knowledge that I've had in the industry that impacts your business. So let's get started. So if you're a small business owner, you really can't afford to ignore AI and cybersecurity. These are things that we're talking to businesses about every single day. I was just recently at an event, and there were a dozen business owners that came up to me and were talking to me about what are the things that we should be focused on. And to me, it seems very obvious because it's things that we deal with on a daily basis. Even as a small and medium-sized business owner, I deal with many of the common things that many other industries are impacted by as well. And what we really look at, and when we look at just over the last, let's say, year, AI and cybersecurity cannot be ignored. These things are moving at such a rapid pace, both for growth of a company, but also to protect a company. The protection is the key piece of it. You have to be able to guard your fort. You have to be able to protect your assets. You have to be able to protect your intellectual property, and you have to be able to protect your people. And growth cannot begin until you have proper protection in place. Those are the fundamentals. At the foundation of your business, you have to protect it. There are many things that are happening in industry today. We hear about it a lot. You hear about it in the news. You read about it on social media. Company got hacked. Company was attacked. But what is the impact that really has to the company? Now, whether you've been part of a cyber incident or not, I can tell you, in many times it's catastrophic. You can't look at the growth until you protect the foundation. How do you protect that business? How do you protect that intellectual property? But by protecting it and having the proper safeguards in place, then that enables you for the growth, and we start talking about AI and other transformational opportunities. So from a cyber perspective, we really look at protecting the foundation. What needs to be protected? One of the biggest misconceptions that I hear from business owners today is that we're just too small for that. We're not a target. But the truth is they're not after your information. Do you have money? Do you turn a profit? Do you have expenses? You have money, and that's what they want. And it's easy. It's easy to be attacked today. You have a digital presence. You use cloud-based applications. You use many different systems in order to support your day-to-day business. But with every tool and platform that you use, it also increases the risk of a cyber attack. So it's about looking at everything holistically, looking at all your platforms and protecting your systems so that you could mitigate the risk of a cyber attack. So let me walk you through what a typical cyber incident looks like. You've got the hustle and bustle of your day-to-day. There's so many things going on. You're dealing with clients, you're dealing with people, you're dealing with vendors, you're dealing with many different things. You're probably wearing a million different hats. And the rest of your staff may feel the same. They've got deadlines that they need to hit. They've got commitments that they have for clients. You're trying to grow the business. So what happens in a typical cyber incident is the bad actors, they like to feed on complacency. They like to feed on you being comfortable. There's things that are happening. It's just the day-to-day. You go into your day-to-day, probably it looks the same, very similar. There's a lot going on, but you have the same routines that are happening. So when a bad actor is targeting a business and they're targeting perhaps your business or another, they're looking at where can they look at the comfort piece of it. Why this is extremely important because the if you can attack when someone's comfortable, most of the time their guard is down. And when your guard is down, that's when the biggest impact can happen. So with a bad actor targeting a business, it usually just doesn't happen overnight. This is something that is a calculated way of attacking. There's perhaps social engineering that happens. There's reviewing public information, social media channels, even information about your business. They're probably even targeting your people. How are they doing so? With phishing emails, things that are similar to social engineering, so that they can social engineer your staff to do something, to provide them some type of information about your business, or perhaps even access to something within your business. So when all this stuff is happening and you're focused on your day-to-day and you don't have the time to focus on protecting it, that's when they attack. Now, they may gain access to your network, and as I mentioned, don't launch the attack immediately, because it's oftentimes, just like we cook and we smoke ribs, it's low and slow. It's a low and slow attack. The reason it's low and slow is that they fly under radar. It's not an immediate attack. They're not looking for instant gratification. It's something that takes time to happen. And while you're going about your day-to-day, if an attacker has gained access into your network, then they're flying under radar and they're getting the information about your business where they can then launch the attack. So I just want to give you an example of a business. I won't mention the name to keep them private, but there was a business, and there is a business still, which isn't something that you could say about every business. I said oftentimes there was a business. Why? Because most businesses cannot sustain an attack of any magnitude. But there's a business who was attacked. And this attack, from the point of entry, from when they gained access to when they actually launched the attack, was 200 days. That means that the attacker was in the business for 200 days, snooping around, looking around where they can get information, what else can they get access to, and then when it was an opportune time, they then launched the attack. After the forensic and analysis there, that's when it was determined they had initially gained access 200 days ago. So that's pretty scary. That's something that can be happening today to your business or a business that you know. So it's extremely important that you're protecting that side. So continuing on with the cyber incident in that business, oftentimes, as I mentioned earlier, that misconception of I don't have any information that a cyber criminal or a bad actor would want. But we talk about the money factor of it. Now, the money factor isn't that there's just an exchange of money. When we look at the total cost of a cyber incident, now, if you've ever heard of ransomware, you may have heard that where, a company is trying to pay to get their data back and they're paying a ransom. But the financial impact to the business is not just by the money that they're paying for a ransom. The impact to a business when a business is attacked, there's reputational damage, there's the amount of stress. You can't even calculate the amount of stress that it puts on a business. There's loss of revenue. There could be loss of employees, loss of credibility. The loss is far greater than just an initial payment of a ransom. When you look at the total cost to businesses on average in the United States is $4 million. So when you look at a total cost of $4 million for the recovery of an incident, how many of you have $4 million in cash in your bank account today that you'd be willing to pay someone? Now, again, that may not be for the bad actors to get your data back. You have legal, you have reputation, you have so many different things that you need to look at. Now maybe you have that money available and you're like, look, we don't care. But when you look at what happens with a cyber attack, most of the times, well, I will say 99.9% of the times, it can be easily prevented. Easily prevented. And I could tell you that it'd be far less than $4 million to do so. Now you may have heard of the concept of the boom when it comes to technology. The boom is when something bad happens. Now, traditionally, you want to work left of the boom before the boom happens. So you want to be able to be preventative. You want to prevent something from happening. Similar to your health, you'd like to prevent getting sick. Getting sick is that boom. But then you also need to be able to react to that. The reality is, whether you like it or not, it's not if, it's when you will be impacted by a cyber attack, either directly or indirectly. Not saying that your business directly will be impacted by a cyber attack, but indirectly, perhaps through your supply chain, through other companies that you work with, other partners and vendors that you trust today, might not have the same level of security that you have within your business. So because of that, you're only strong as your weakest link. So if you're only strong as your weakest link and you have a trusted partner that you work with today, that you trust, that you transact with, do you have the awareness? Does your team have the awareness to be able to identify if that trusted partner has now been victimized by a cyber attack? So let's get into how. What are the most common ways, the attack vectors that we see today that businesses are being attacked? The most common by far, is through email. You've probably heard of phishing email. That's when a bad actor, an attacker, is trying to social engineer you or your people to do something or to disclose some information about your business that might be internal to your business, or even, perhaps, even gain access to your systems through that phishing email. The reason it's the most common today is that it costs very little to do. It's the mentality of you can spray and pray. They can spray emails out by the millions or billions of emails for a very low cost, and not that they're looking for 100% conversion. When you look at it and you compare that to your marketing, for example, you look at conversions of how many prospective clients you can get to raise their hand, yes, I'm interested in your services. Think about that from the attacker perspective. They're not looking for everybody to convert, to click on those emails, but what if they can get a small percentage of the people? So if it's cost very little to do and the skill set required in order to launch an attack like that is very low, the bar is very low, it becomes the most common. And to add on top of that, one of the most common communication methods businesses use is email. So by looking at the email side and the attack vector being email as being the number one, the most common, that is what you need to protect. Now, that isn't the only thing that you need to protect. Email is something that you absolutely need to. You need to be able to identify what's happening, what's getting through, what your people are clicking on, and building a culture internally within your business that there's a no-blame culture when it comes to cybersecurity. What I mean by that is that you do not want your people, your staff, to feel intimidated or feel there's ramifications by them inadvertently or by mistake clicking on something that perhaps they shouldn't have clicked on. You have to promote and encourage this within your business. The reason you need to promote and encourage your team feeling comfortable that they can raise their hand and say, I think I did something wrong, without ramifications, by them doing so, will only protect the security posture and what we call the human firewall for your business. The most common is phishing, and that is the easiest way to target your attack. But one of the ways that you may not even be considering, that may not be obvious to you, is something that is called deepfake. A deepfake is where a bad actor is using your voice and perhaps even your face to social engineer your team, your loved ones, perhaps even your supply chain, and impersonate you when it's not you. This is very scary. This is something that is extremely accessible to everybody at a very low cost, and it's gaining in popularity, and the success rate is much higher than the success rate of a phishing email. We talked about conversions. Once you combine social engineering through deepfakes in the entire attack chain, the conversion rate is much higher. So you may be thinking, how is this even possible? This leads me to talking about AI. The AI piece of it. Over the last 2 years, the whole game has changed. In 2022, when ChatGPT or OpenAI released ChatGPT, that was the first flavor that many people had to AI. That was the introduction of AI to them. Fast forward 4 years, and ChatGPT now has 700 million active users per week. It's very clear that the usage has skyrocketed. It's very clear as to why it was the fastest growing product when it was first released. But with every good technology, if you would consider AI as good, it's not only used for good, but it's also used for bad. And it's being weaponized. It's being weaponized by these bad actors, by these adversaries. And they're using it to attack your businesses. 4 years ago, if I were to ask you how easy was it to spot a phishing email, it'd be very obvious. Why? Because there were grammar issues, maybe there was a sense of urgency, or perhaps the email didn't even land. It had nothing to do with your business. The topic was completely out of left field. You couldn't even relate to what they were talking about. But if you look at what's getting through now, you're seeing that they're much more hyper-focused. The grammar is perfect, and they're harder to detect. How are they doing this? Well, they're doing it with AI. AI has changed the game. Yes, there's a ton of great benefits that we could talk about how businesses can use it. But on the topic of cybersecurity, the bad actors are using it just like you are. They're using it on a daily basis. They're using it to craft a campaign, a cadence, and a campaign to target a business, to research your business, to attack the business with the information that they're gaining. But they're also using it for the deepfakes. In order to perform a deepfake, you use an AI voice, which is a replica of your voice. The AI listens to it. It then creates a voice that sounds just like you. Now, you can use AI to also create an image in a avatar of you. And by doing so, combining your voice with an avatar that looks just like you, well, I can provide it a script to say whatever I want it to say, and it looks just like you. Yes, that might be on a Zoom call. You may see an avatar, and it may not be you. Or there might even be a video. I promise you this video is real. This is not an avatar of me. But would you be able to spot that? If you had a side-by-side, would you be able to spot it? Key and Peele, the comedians, actually did a deepfake on former President Barack Obama. Most people couldn't believe it. This is early on. This might be 4 or 5 years ago. It's still up today. I'm sure there's millions of views on the YouTube. Most people, if you show it to them, they will have no idea that it wasn't him that was speaking, but it was a comedian. And then they did a side-by-side between the comedian and the actual avatar where he was speaking, and the avatar, which looked just like former President Barack Obama speaking, the words that he was speaking. So that's over video. But what about, can you spot it over a telephone too? So as I said, AI can be weaponized, but there's also a good piece of it too. And the good side of it, there's many use cases, but let's just talk about how it can actually help you mitigate the risk of a cyber attack. Now, AI has been in cybersecurity for a number of years. This predates the ChatGPTs and what actually hit the consumer side of the business. Because there's so much data that needs to be analyzed, there's zero chance that you'd be able to analyze that on your own. But you as a small and medium-sized business, you can use AI today, and you probably have some types of AI already deployed that can help identify these types of things for you. So if you have any type of email protection software that's sitting in front of your email, it's probably using some AI to try to identify that. The speed and velocity that the AI can do something to mitigate the risk and protect your business is far greater than someone just behind a keyboard can do for you. So you're leveraging AI within the business to identify these things, just like the bad actors are using it to attack. You can also use it to help identify and protect the business. There's many use cases for that today, and there's many success stories of how that's being done today within your business. For protecting things, which the most common attack vector, email, you can use AI to identify those things and protect your business. The deepfaking that we mentioned, you can also use AI to help protect and identify those types of attacks within your business, as well as many of the other attacks. There's dozens of other attacks that your business can fall victim to, but AI can be used to help protect your business by being more preventative and more predictive of what's happening. When we talk about predictive side of things, it's about predicting when something's going to happen. If you know that something is taking place within your business and you can then predict, for example, let's just use at a very basic level right now. At a very basic level, we look at, let's just say your computer that you use today. If your computer has a 100 gig hard drive and your computer is using 1 gigabyte of disk space on a daily basis, you could probably predict that your computer will run out of disk space in 100 days. If it's 100 gig available and you're using 1 gig per day, you can predict that in 100 days, your computer is going to run out of disk space. Now, that's at a very basic level, just so that you can really understand what we're talking about from a predictive side of things. But what if you can look at many other data points, things that are happening around the business, and be able to use those data points all together to be able to predict and identify things before they become catastrophic events? You can do that with AI, and it's being used and applied to businesses every day. The reason we talk about predictive, being more predictive, it isn't just on the cybersecurity side of things. Technology is similar to humans. They usually get sick before they die. So the technology and being more predictive and more preventative is extremely important, and it needs to be part of your strategy. We are far beyond the I got a guy type of mentality. I've got an IT. Or perhaps I have the office manager who's now operating IT because he or she took a computer class at one point. The risks associated with running any type of technology today or any type of digital presence is far greater than the 1990s, when maybe you had one computer. You didn't go through a digital transformation. You weren't using cloud-based applications. You didn't have a ton of IT and different platforms that stored your data. We're far beyond that. We are far beyond that because the amount of time and skill set required in order to deliver a properly structured IT program for your business cannot be done by one person who knows a little bit about IT. Yes, are things up and running when you come in the office? Yes, maybe things are working today. But if you rewind back a little bit, when I talked about being comfortable and complacent, it is working today, but are you prepared if it's not working tomorrow? Now, not working tomorrow may be due because there was an outage, or maybe a system was down. But what if it was a cyber attack where someone was in your business for 200 days? What type of information do they have access to? In order to properly run a strong IT program, we're talking about day-to-day operational support. We're talking about strategy. We're talking about implementation. We really look at it as, how do you shift from, if you look at the value chart, if you've ever seen a value chart and you look at low effort, high value, high effort, low effort, and you look at just the value chart, where do you sit today? Are you finding yourself or your team putting in high effort and getting low value for their IT program? Or are you actually putting in low effort, low value? When you look at it, you got to find that sweet spot. And the way that you find that sweet spot is by properly supporting and delivering a mature IT program that's covering your day-to-day. Yes, there is that element of having to support the day-to-day. A user has an issue, the user needs to be back up and running. Maybe the user can't print. Well, the user needs to print. Yes, I get it. What about the cloud strategy? What about the implementation integrations with your partners? What about the cybersecurity and compliance? Whether you want it or not, there might be a company or a partner that you work with in your supply chain who's driving compliance for you. What about the AI transformation, the AI enablement, and the overall cybersecurity posture? These are things that organizations need today in order to have that competitive advantage for the future. If you don't have these types of things in place, these are things that will cost you a lot more in the future. We talk about price versus cost. Price is what you pay today. The cost is what it costs you in the future. Are you willing to pay a low price today for a high cost in the future? Now, no, I definitely wouldn't want to do that. Okay, I get it. There's a lot that I've thrown at you today, and you may be feeling very overwhelmed. You don't even know where to get started. You got a million things that you're dealing with on a daily basis. You're doing sales, you're doing operations, you're paying the bills. You may even be mopping the floor. You're doing everything within a business. There's a ton of things that are happening, and by no means am I here to make you feel overwhelmed. I'm here to provide solutions. And how do we get there? How do you actually take where you are today to be informed? It's all about being informed so that you can make informed decisions on where your business needs to go. So I started this business 26 years ago. 26 years ago, I had this vision and mission as the organization to fuel businesses with the technology they needed to succeed. And yes, the landscape 26 years ago was much different than it is today. But the commitment that we've had is to be able to adapt and change with the things that are happening in the industry to ensure that we can deliver the right types of services and support to our customers. Now, what's become very apparent over the last few years is the risks associated with just operating a business is extremely high. And we have delivered and created an approach with all these things that you're doing on a daily basis to deliver an effortless experience for you. The effortless experience for you is to be able to provide you high value at low effort. Now, if I were to ask you today that you need to put in high effort to get low value, you probably wouldn't be too happy because we just talked about it. You probably have 5 or 6 or 10 other things that you're dealing with on a daily basis. The last thing that you're going to want to do is to then actually have to put in high effort to manage another relationship, which is going to take you away from the things that you probably do best for your business. So you might be thinking, where do you get started from here? You have all these things that are happening, hustle and bustle every day. First place to start is an assessment. You have to assess what's happening in your business. Now, you may have the skill set or people within your business that can do so, but it is a great opportunity to have a third party to do this for you. The reason this is important is that if you're in the business every day working on the technology or working on the systems, you may create this tunnel vision of how you actually operate. This is how you operate, and you believe that that's how things just need to operate. Getting that third-party perspective is extremely important because that can actually get you out of that tunnel vision of just looking at it one particular way and looking at different angles of how you can identify and mitigate the risk that your business may face. We also want to identify areas of friction within your business. Friction is usually that low-hanging fruit that can help you identify the areas that the business needs to improve, especially when it comes from a technology perspective. If you look at those manual, mundane tasks that you or your team is doing on a daily basis, wouldn't you love to be able to automate some of those things, to be able to put your people on high-value tasks versus that perhaps high-effort, low-value tasks? So looking at the friction and identifying points of friction can really help improve the overall technology program. You can also look at how do you align with a framework. So there's these industry blueprints and frameworks that you can use, such as CIS and NIST, that'll provide you the controls that your business should align with that are built around mitigating the risk and compliance for your business. Also, by doing so, you can identify things such as shadow AI or shadow IT. Probably most organizations may be a little bit more knowledgeable on shadow IT. Shadow IT is IT that's introduced to your business, that's in your business, and you don't know about it. It's not governed by anybody. It's not governed by you. It's not governed by IT if you have an IT team. It's only governed by the person who likely just went to a website, signed up for an application, whether it was free or paid, and now your company information is being stored on those systems. Shadow IT. It's shadow, you can't see it, you don't know where it is, but it's being used actively in order to conduct business. This is a huge risk to your business because your information is being stored on systems that are not governed by IT. The importance of governing it by IT is by putting policy in place, backing up the data. There might be financial information on these systems that's being stored, or company information that, if it was lost, would be detrimental to your business. IT should know about this so that IT could back it up and protect it properly. But more recently, we start talking about shadow AI. Now, shadow AI is similar to shadow IT, but shadow AI is for AI applications that are being used within your business. So whether it's ChatGPT, Claude, Perplexity, Gemini, any one of them, and there's many others, these platforms may be used within your business today without any of your knowledge. Now, the risk that your business faces by having these applications that are being used within your business is that Most of the time, they're free. Now, there's no free software out there. I don't think you'd be in business today offering a free service, would you? You have to be compensated somehow. And the way that the platforms are compensated is by your information. The information that's being used for all these platforms is being used to retrain their models to make it better for the people who are going to pay for it. This is happening every day within businesses, and it is very hard to detect it. But it can be detected. And there's a proper way of mitigating this risk from start to finish, from policies, procedures, awareness, technological controls that can be put in place to help identify these types of things to mitigate your information, your intellectual property from being put out there into the world that can be accessed and used by other platforms and by free and paid subscribers. Now, if you rewind that all back, well, if it could be used for good purposes, it can also be used for bad purposes. So if I'm using one of these platforms and I put your entire handbook in the free version of one of these platforms that don't have the proper controls in place, the proper security, the proper privacy, and I put handbook, it could be other internal documentation, because I just need to proofread it really quick. Or maybe I want it to spell check. Maybe I want to add an appendix to it. And instead of me doing it, I just now published all this information in this platform to make it easier for me. Now, most of the time it's unknowingly. Your staff does not know the real risks that they're taking on and they're introducing to the business. That's why we say that the biggest risk to an organization are their people. Your internal people are the biggest risk that your business faces today. Yes, there's the external side of it that we talked about earlier, but the internal side of it is a huge risk to your business. So we need to identify that risk. We need to build awareness for your team. Your people need to know what they should be doing and what they shouldn't be doing. So identifying shadow AI within the business also adds a level of complexity to managing a proper IT program and becomes more evident as to why you need to have the right people and partners that you're working with on a daily basis that's helping identify these things for you. Because once again, you have a million things that you're dealing with. IT doesn't have to be one of them. All right, so I've given you the doom and gloom about IT and the risks about IT. But now we need to be able to convert and change IT from being an expense for your business to a true profit center. And the first place that we start is changing the mentality of commoditization. Now, keeping things up and running in IT today is a commodity. Yes, you expect that your internet is up and running. You expect that your systems will be up and running today. You expect when you turn on your laptop's going to work. We really see that as a commodity. You expect that. So when something is commoditized, what happens? Well, you're probably looking at the lowest price. But everything has gotten much more complex here. We're not just talking about keeping things up and running. We're talking about using technology to fuel your business and the growth of your business. So the commodity side of it and having IT lumped in the same group as garbage disposal and cleaning of the office is something of the past. You have to be looking at how do you actually transform your business through the use of technology, whether that's AI transformation, whether that's being able to deliver solutions to your clients that are going to provide them a better experience, or take your team from doing those high effort, low value tasks so that you can free them up to be able to focus on the high value tasks that your clients and that your business needs. See, it's this whole shift. It isn't about keeping things up and running. anymore. That is a commodity. Or running patches on your computer. Yes, that is a commodity. You're probably interviewing 1, 2, 3, maybe 5 different IT providers. You maybe even be evaluating if you're going to have this internal or if you're going to look for a partner. The big differentiator is how do you actually look at the fueling of the business? And how is technology being used at the core to deliver the future of where the business needs to go? If you don't have value, in the absence of value, price is the issue. You only focus on the price side of it. But it's not priced. Price is what you pay today. The cost of doing something or not doing something is what it costs you in the future. And unless you make the right decision and you look at technology as a profit center for your business and have those difficult questions with those managed service providers or IT providers that you're interviewing, you're evaluating, you're probably going to evaluate at some point in the future. Make sure that you're asking those tough questions of where they can actually take you from where you are today. There's a future state that you want to be in compared to your current state. How can they fill that gap for you? Will they work in the gap to get you from where you are today to where you want to go in the future? And technology can help propel that, or it can keep you where you're at today. So let me give you a very simple analogy. If you were to go into a store today to go buy a Diet Coke, and you saw that Diet Coke when you went to the refrigerator, one was for $1 and one was for $2, which one would you pick? I'd have to believe you'd probably pick the $1 one. But if you were to go back into that store on a hot summer day, and you went to that same refrigerator, and you saw one for $1 and you saw one for $2, but the one at $2 was ice cold. It is scorching outside. It's ice cold. It's going to quench your thirst immediately. Once you take that first sip, which one do you buy? Pretty sure it's going to be that $2 one. That's a very simple analogy of high value that you can take and apply it to many aspects of your business. Look for that value. Don't compare and look at the commodity. Everyone is going to tell you about keeping things up and running. Everybody's going to tell you that they have the best techs out there. Nobody's ever going to tell you that they have the worst engineer that's in the back. You never want to take that call from the engineer. But look at the transformation. And I get it. If you're looking at a commodity, just like I would as well, I'm going to look for the lowest price. But that's a trap that we fall into that costs us so much more than what the price is today. All right, well, let's close the loop here. We've talked about a lot here today. And as we wrap up, you have one of 3 options that you could take. The first, which makes 0 sense at all, is do nothing. That sounds ridiculous to do nothing at this point. If you're a business owner who's trying to grow your business, doing nothing is going to cost you a lot. The next thing that you can consider doing, and maybe you have throughout this podcast, maybe you took down some notes of things that you want to go back to your team about and talk to them about some improvements that you can make. But we know the reality is if you were going to do something, you probably would have already done it. Or if the team that is there today was going to do it, they would have already done it. It doesn't need you to go to them with these ideas. Or the third option is work with a partner. Work with a partner that's going to take you from a commoditized IT support structure to a profit center that's going to fuel your business. And yes, you're probably going to interview up to 5 different partners out there. Let the best one win that's going to be aligned specifically with where your business wants to go. And have them prove to you of how they're going to help you take your business from where it is today to where you want it to be in the future. And I'll tell you, the one that you should choose is the one that's been there before. The one that has been where you're trying to go. Not one that is going to try to keep up with your growth potential. It's one that is helping propel the growth potential for you. Thanks for tuning in for another episode of the Tech 1-2 podcast. Hey, if you liked what you heard, like or subscribe below. Add a comment. I'd love to be able to answer it. If you'd like to be on the podcast as well, please let me know. We'd love to promote your brand. We'd love to talk about technology, bring you in as an industry leader as well. And if you thoroughly enjoyed the topics today, but I didn't discuss a topic that you have interest in, let me know in the comments below, and I'd love to do an episode on that. This has been the Tech 1-2 podcast. I'm John Campus. See you soon.